Well, welcome to the Clifton Worley Show. This week I have two guests. Josh Fraser.
Hello.
Nick Viau.
Hey.
And I don't know what we're doing. We're like, we're just doing something. This is going to be an episode unlike any other before. But Nick and Josh are some of my most dedicated and loyal fans of the show. And we got to talking and realized that we should do an episode together. And hey, if this works out, this may be its own life of its own. And so I want to hear what our listeners have to say about it. And if this is something you would like to see us do periodically, and maybe even some title suggestions. I don't know.
That's a lot of pressure, Clifton.
I know I'm putting you guys under some intense pressure to perform here.
Guys, if Josh and Nick don't suck, this could be a thing. But
I'll just be quiet then. Oh goodness.
But we're just gonna talk about some things that are on our mind. And gosh, it's been over a week ago since we dreamed this up, and we threw a bunch of topics out that we would cover, and some ideas to get us started. But before we do that, I kind of want to just let you guys kind of say hello and maybe some thoughts about where we should go with this episode.
You first, Josh. You're the organized guy.
I'm the organized guy. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, I don't know. I don't really know. I'm Josh, and was on Clifton's show a little bit earlier, a few episodes ago. I can't remember which one, but yeah, I thought it'd just be kind of cool to talk about the differences between kind of the South and the North, since we're about as far north as you can get without being in Canada. How we could talk about our remembrances of Tom Petty, who passed unfortunately, and yes. I'd love to hear about Clifton's recent trip too, personally.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. And I'm Nick Viau. I've been on here a couple times now, but yeah, I've always loved the show, and I'm always happy to contribute. And it's funny that you mentioned Tom Petty too. I actually went to Hartford over the weekend for a higher education conference, and they played Tom Petty the entire time I was there.
Oh man!
Wow!
It was like the greatest hits back to back to back to back to back, and I was like really thinking a lot about Tom at the time. So yeah, interesting that we're talking about it today for sure.
Now, I'm curious, Nick, how that made you feel hearing, because I don't know that I've really been able to listen to Tom Petty since he passed right away. I mean, yeah.
I've heard it. I've been hearing him more than ever. It's because that might be part of it. Maybe when I hear it now, before it was just like I heard Tom Petty all the time, but now when I hear it, I think, oh, Tom Petty, that sucks. You know, one of the things I kind of, it's kind of been a celebration of sorts though, like a tribute, because I never really realized how many Tom Petty songs I liked. I mean, I've heard probably everything since his passing, other than stuff with Mudcrutch that he did, which is fantastic, and I want to listen to more. I'm kind of just discovering that. But yeah, I mean, what an amazing songwriter. And I don't think we'll ever see a band like that again. And that's what makes me sad. Mm-hmm. What a talent. And it's funny, he talked about he had some good comments, when he was still alive. I don't remember when the interview was, but he said that today the Heartbreakers would never make it, just because when they first started, they were given a really unique opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
And they were allowed to fail, and they were allowed to be daring in the studio, and people gave them a chance. And today, with the way singles are and everything, he doesn't know if they'd even make it. But yeah, what a unique talent. And that's a good point. I mean, are there other bands like that out there? I don't know, but to me, and they were such a unique talent, and they were so incredibly good. I can't even imagine them not being able to. But just the breadth and depth and all the different kinds of songs he wrote and Mike Campbell's playing as a sideman. I mean, what a sideman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about a guy that
Bent
understood. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess to sum up my point of view on it, I've always loved Tom Petty, but I hate to say it, I think I like him even more now that he's gone.
Oh, man.
I never realized what we had with him, I guess. You know?
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Like, when I was back in college and Johnny Cash passed, like, I didn't really pay much attention to his music beforehand, but then, like, after the fact, like, I really dug in and discovered his music, and then, like, when Walk the Line came out, I don't know about you guys, but, like, that was a pivotal point in my musical journey because it tapped me into a world of music that I was unaware of up to that point. And I started, researching all the music that was in that, and I really dug into it, kind of leaned into it. With Tom, it's not quite like that because I already, like, was a huge Tom Petty fan already. Even though, like, I wouldn't say, like, he's, my absolute favorite artist of all time, but he's been consistent, like, throughout my whole journey of, like, having good music. I was going to say, like, I remember my first Tom Petty track I remember was Free Falling. When I was I was riding to school on a bus in middle school. Had this really cool bus driver, and she would let us listen to the radio. And I remember that track coming on, and the whole bus would stop whatever they were doing and yell out, "Now I'm free fall!" And, like, it's just those moments that you get, like, in music that you'll never forget, like, where you were, what you were doing. And to me, that was everybody on the bus, like, just singing his most approachable lyrics in the world, Free Fallin'. I mean, the chorus was just, it's so, everything about Tom was so simple and approachable music. Anybody on any platform could enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I want Josh to talk here, but my unique memory. Okay, so Josh lives in Lake City, and I live in Grand Rapids now, and I'm originally from Sheboygan, which is really far. It's right below the bridge into the Upper Peninsula. So I've had to literally drive through Lake City since I was 19 years old up till now to go home and visit my folks. And I cannot tell you how many times I've listened to Tom Petty driving that stretch north, that rural stretch of highway, and, belting out Free Falling or Fallen, and whatever else came on, Running Down a Dream. I mean, you talk about the ultimate driving music. I mean, it just reminds me of all those trips back from college up north and all of that. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's that same thing. I don't know if there's anybody that hasn't, like, cranked down the window and belted out Free Falling when it came on.
Oh yeah. I mean, for me, go ahead.
I feel like I'm trying to explain, like, I feel like I'm trying to over-explain Tom Petty.
Yeah, everybody understands him.
Saying that,
Yeah. Everybody understands him. Yeah, for sure. For me, it was. Well, let me think. It was probably the Resurgence thing. It was probably The Last Dance with Mary Jane and that whole album there. Good to Be King. I really liked a lot. And then Wildflowers. Oh.
Yes.
Oh, Wildflowers.
That whole that whole album there. It just for me, it introduced me to something that I spent a long time really enjoying: bluegrass music and folk music and singer-songwriter stuff. Where sometimes there's things that the Heartbreakers would do that's like, there's no way I can do that. There's no way I can do that tight arrangement and play that. But, like, Wildflowers, it's like, okay, just honesty, a voice, and a guitar, and you can sing almost every song on there except for Honeybee. Honeybee's the only one that you can't do solo, pretty much, that I know of. But that Wildflowers really did it for me. And then I went backwards from Wildflowers into the Heartbreakers stuff, and that's It was really eye-opening to hear just great, solid, regular rock music without a lot of extra stuff put in there, and an honest voice that just rode over top of it. It wasn't anything that and if you come from the '80s and the '90s like we do, you heard these like Def Leppard, they would have 20 vocal tracks, and it's like, okay, that's not a human thing that a human can do. That's this gigantic production. Tom Petty's stuff was always so stripped back that even if it felt huge to you, it's like it's approachable in a certain way. I mean, the perfection isn't. There's a point where his stuff is always so perfect in the live recordings that that's not quite something that I think we can accomplish as people. That's a singular talent. But that's kind of how I got involved with him. In the way that how would you say it? The way that I found him, through Wildflowers. I would say Wildflowers and the Marriage and that other album there. I can't remember the name of it. For sure.
I know some of the songs though. I know what you're talking about. I bought Wildflowers at a yard sale like a year ago, and I kid you not, like Wildflowers stayed in my. I would listen to it every time I got in my car.
Yeah.
And if you listen to that album, like it just, like, from the start of the album all the way to the end, it's almost like a natural progression. If it goes on constant loop play, like for where the end of the album goes, if you looped right back into the beginning of the album, like it even makes sense there. Like, and I could listen to that title track just looped over and over and over, probably for hours, and not complain.
Yeah.
'Cause it really just, it's kind of, it's like he sets the tone, he draws you in, and then bam, he gets to business,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so little of that kind of music out there these days, just really honest, simple. I mean, Americana's huge, but I think they might have lost that thread, that just really honest, simple thread that, carries up from Hank Williams to Bob Dylan to, Tom Petty. I mean, that's how I see that progression. Hank Williams was really honest about everything he said. Bob Dylan he was honest, and people kind of tried to pretend like they try to pretend like he's veiling stuff, he's hiding stuff. But no, he's not. He's just being really super honest, and people are trying to put extra stuff on top of it. Same thing with Tom Petty. He's telling a simple story, don't have to put more into it than what it is, for sure.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to look up.
Well,
there was a particular Tom Petty album that I really, really liked. And the reason why I found Tom Petty was my dad played CDs in the morning, every morning, for us to get up to school, for school. And there was one album in particular, and I can't find it. You guys know the song Two Gunslingers?
Oh my goodness. It felt like is there a music video behind that? Like, I remember like there being a Tom Petty music video where like he's dressed as a cowboy with guns and stuff.
It was at the very end, the album had like a painting on it of a country scene.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to type it up on my phone right now, and I can't.
Into the Great Wide Open.
The Great Wide Open.
Yeah, I Googled it. I can't tell you that I know it, but I Googled it. Yeah.
That's the one I know from like front to back that we burned out when we were kids, because my dad played it all the time.
Oh, and those music videos. Oh, they were good. Yeah.
He was so cool. There was nothing not cool. The guy couldn't help but be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, even like I've been watching Norm's rare guitar videos on YouTube lately, and they've been doing Tom Petty Tribute Week, and just the stuff. If you just Google images of him live and the stuff he'd play, like the 12-string Ricks and the Fender 12s and all that, and the top hat and the coat or whatever he wore, everything was just cool with that guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not like he was like, he's famous for some guitars, but the guy played like everything. And he had that jangly rhythm, and then you got Mike Campbell doing everything from slide to just the tasty leads on that Telecaster and everything else, and it's just incredible stuff. Stuff that you can. But you were talking about that honesty, and like, I guess I can put it the best. This is the best way I can put it. I've never been a guy that could sit down and just learn a lot of songs or do a lot of chording or anything like that. But a few years ago, I bought a mandolin, and the first thing I started playing was a bunch of Tom Petty songs on mandolin, and like, you know, Learning to Fly, Free Fallin', all that stuff. And like, if you can chord, you can play Tom Petty songs, you know, and that's just really, I think that connects with a lot of people, you know?
Yeah. One of my favorite things he ever said on the Running Down the Dream documentary was get to the chorus, don't bore us. Because you got this guy who came out of that setting where like everybody had like the endless guitar solos, especially like in classic rock, you know, of that era. And you just hear tasteful parts being played. You don't hear these huge, ginormous, you know, like, it's not like Freebird, like where they just solo on forever. Or Allman Brothers Band. Like, he was kind of that first, and I wouldn't classify him as like Southern rock, even though like he was from the same area as some of those other Southern rock artists. But like, he was just more like just straightforward, approachable pop rock, you know.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a label, Clifton. He's Tom Petty.
That's it.
He is a label. It's Petty.
I know. I'm sitting here trying to like describe him like we don't know who he is, I guess.
Yeah, you're not exactly going to introduce him to somebody because everybody knows everything about him practically, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah, and so it's that has affected me all week for sure. You know, past couple, you know, since it happened. Just thinking, I can't even listen to it. I used to put him on all the time. I can't listen to him right now because it's kind of, you know, it's emotional and stuff, and emotional stuff isn't fun. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. I get it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, moving on. What do we want to talk about?
You something better than death? Is that what you're trying to say? Josh left us on that awesome note.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just gonna leave it on death, y'all.
Well,
we're gonna ponder death.
We're gonna think about a bummer for a couple minutes, huh? No, well, I want to hear about your trip to Washington and how that went. How it went to DC, what you did in DC.
There you go.
Well, I can tell you one thing. I don't know if I'd ever want to drive to DC again. That was about a 16-hour drive, but it didn't take me 16 hours. It took me over 20 something, and I took off last Wednesday night, and I was like, I'm going to power through the evening. I'm going to drive all night long. I'm going to get to D.C. in the middle of the next day. And my wife turns to me. We're like in North Alabama somewhere. And she says, when are you stopping? And I was like, well, I thought like, you know, I was going to drive until daylight and then you were going to take over driving. She's like, no, we can't do this. Like all these kids, you know, they're going to, because I took my kids with me. So like, they're going to be awake and we're going to be tired and we can't deal with that. And
oh, hell no.
So
no way.
Off the interstate, first exit I could find. And I stopped in Fort Payne, Alabama, home of the super country group Alabama. Actually, been through there before, and stopped, and the hotels were completely booked. And I was like, oh man. And they called, and fortunately there was like 5 miles down the road, like they called and found me a hotel to stay in. And then it was crazy. I got there at 2:00 in the morning. My kids all woke up when we got them out. They got there so it was like 5:00 till they all went down. I woke up about 9:30. And I was like, oh, man, we got to get on the road. And so got everybody loaded up. We hit the road, drove till midnight, got into Pennsylvania, which is insane. Oh, on the way, I stopped and saw Jonathan Michael Diaz in Tennessee. He
in the Burger King drive-through window.
No, I didn't go through the drive-through. I went in,
That would have
and
been hilarious if you had streamed it.
it would have been hilarious. Yeah. He can't. What it was, I walked in there and like I saw that he was busy, and so I like turned my phone on and I was live streaming, and all of a sudden like he turns around and he looks at me, and he's like, "I'll get to you in a minute," and I was like, "Okay, cool," and he came up to me like afterwards and he was like, "Dude, my employees like alerted me that some dude was in here like videotaping us." It's like there's something wrong. There's something wrong. What's this guy doing? And he's like, "Oh, don't worry about him. He's just probably live streaming." And so, anyways, it was really funny though. Like his like district manager was in the store, like while he was there, and he had to be like on his best behavior. So I didn't get to hang out with him like, I might would have like on a normal day, but things kind of slowed down. They were kind of going through the end of a little rush there, and he got to sit down and talk with him a few minutes and eat a Whopper. And I regret not taking a picture and posting it in the burger group.
A Diaz burger.
I know. It was good. Like he told me to get the, I don't remember what they call it, but it's like a Whopper with bacon and barbecue sauce on it. It's like a Western Whopper. It was good. And so yeah, we hit the road from there and we got into Pennsylvania late that night. My wife had a cousin up there, and we went and we hit Hershey, Pennsylvania the next morning for about half a morning, and did that. I got to drop through Gettysburg on the way down to D.C. Got to kind of drop through the Battlefield Highway there, and I've never been that far north so far, and it was absolutely beautiful up there. It was just rolling hills. You just come out of the mountains, and it was so. I had this picture that like up there, it would just be like city after city, and it was kind of rural, which kind of took me off guard. It was kind of rural, and you saw like these beautiful farmhouses just out in the middle of nowhere, like but you could see from the interstate, and it was very farm oriented up there. And Maryland was a lot of the same until you got right into D.C. And then I'm rambling. I'm rambling. No. So I got to D.C. and we got there about 4:00 in the afternoon, Friday evening, and it was. Went and checked in the hotel. Then we went down to the National Mall, and I was there with this Awaken the Dawn thing. It was a worship event where each state had their own tent. So like they had delegates sent from each state, like to go represent our state and to take turns like singing. And so what we did is like I signed up for 2 different 2-hour slots from midnight. Okay. And got out there, and it was a little different than I thought it was going to be because there was so much cooperation with everybody. Like I would walk in, I think I got there about 10 o'clock the first night. I walked in and like, hey, get your guitar out and start playing. And so like I just started playing music like with these people that I didn't know very well. And by the end of the weekend, I got to know these people pretty well. It was kind of cool.
At some point, just tell me this: was there a worship rock off between tents? Because this is really
between tents,
different state worship rock off. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a spirit of community right there.
Because if so, I'm going next
quite. But Right, but what I thought was way cool, there was like people who would go like from tent to tent and like hang out for a minute, kind of just jumping in impromptu playing. It was kind of cool, you know. And like there's this dude, he looked like just a hippie, and but he was a young guy, and like he was walking around, he was super chill, and he was walking around with a saxophone like on like the neck strap, and he would just like walk by and he'd go like in the key you're playing, like improvising with you, and then he'd go on to the next tent and do the same thing. It was hilarious. It was almost like, if I could imagine like what it'd be like out in front of like a Fish concert, like before the concert, where everybody's just jamming, you know.
I really thought you were going to say stoned.
It had a thunder, but no drugs involved. At least I hope not. There was something called the Thunder Tent that I walked by one day. I'll have to post a video of this. And they had like 3 or 4 drum sets set up, and they had like all kind of hand percussion instruments thrown out there, and they probably had like 100 people on drums. And I walked by, and like,
that sounds awesome.
They've got a group going on, and they're just going like hours upon hours, just and
so it was like going to see the Allman Brothers. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. It was incredible.
Only no awesome
it was
slide
incredible.
guitar, just drums.
Yeah, it was just drums. It was just drums, and it was called the Thunder Tent.
Wow.
I thought it was really cool. I went and saw one of the guests I've had on the show, Zach Haggerty. He was playing, linked up with him. He was playing at the West Coast Regional tent. Brett Alexander played there as well. You know who that guy is, right?
Oh yeah, I immediately expected that he would be playing blues guitar, and was immediately disappointed when I found out he was just playing bass.
I'll tell you something about Brett though. I was standing, like I had gone to a food truck like on down the way. Was getting some food for my kids, and I heard this like amazing music pumping out of this tent. And so I heard this amazing music going on, and I heard this really good bass groove. And I was really digging it. Like I was like, this dude is spot on. And I get there to the tent, and none other than Brett Alexander was holding it down. That's why, like I tried to live stream, and like my phone kept cutting out up there, but like he was killing it on the bass, and I don't think you could hear it like on the iPhone, but I was like, man, this dude's like a really impressive bass player.
He was probably also recording a demo. That's why he was hunched over the monitor, because that was where his phone was. No, that's awesome.
That's cool.
I like Brett. Brett
was really cool.
Brett can play. Really cool.
Now, that actually makes it...
he's such a great player.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting, because I know we all come from kind of different backgrounds, church-wise. Actually,
yeah.
Nick was talking about it. You go to a Catholic church, and how different that is than like the contemporary worship scene in most of our churches, right?
If by different you mean terrible. Yeah.
I mean, Clifton and I probably play a lot of the same songs, but then we have you say basically they just kind of randomly sing whatever.
Well, I'm not even going to say. Well, I can't say that all Catholic churches are like this, because I have heard that there are some Catholic churches that are a little more contemporary music wise. But I mean, we're talking about the same. Usually the scene of a Catholic church, from what I've seen, is you might have an electric drum player, and then there's like usually a church lady on the piano or organ singing, and then a choir, and that's basically what you've got. And then But what always drives me crazy, there's some songs, some of the classics I really, really like, but most of the time it's like you've got like a hook and then you've got some kind of jazz a cappella verse thing where all the music stops, and then the woman at the piano singing just kind of starts playing, and then like reads a verse while she's trying to put it into music in some kind of weird fusion, and then it goes back to the hook. I'm just like, there's funny. Like, you know, it's kind of like, okay, so it's kind of like a priest chanting the Our Father instead of just saying the Our Father, tries to sing the Our Father but can't sing because there's like no way to work it out.
Yeah,
and it doesn't sound right. It's like that, like, you know. You have this awesome hook, and then we worship, we praise him, we blah 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 blah, we blah, 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 and then it goes back to the hook, and then you're like, is this a song or what? Like, I don't know what this is. Well, anyway, that's kind of what it is. So I get really jealous when I hear like all this, like they're like the P-dubs thing is really new to me. Like, I've never. My buddy plays drums in a band like that, and he absolutely loves it. He sends me photos all the time. He showed me his guitar player's pedal board. The dude's rocking this custom 335. He's got these Strymon pedals all over the place and all these like reverbs and drives and fuzzes. And I'm like, when are you using all this stuff? When? Like, I can't picture this because what I've known is what I just described. Like, that would blow my mind.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah, you know, you look at it from the inside, and it's like, yeah, pretty much everybody does the same thing. Especially when you're playing electric, you're going to play, you know, you're going to play kind of washy stuff, or you're going to play a rhythm, or, you know, and then to come at it like that. And even before I went to a church, it was contemporary. When I went to a church where it was traditional music, it's still very set. You do your hymns, and then you do like 4 or 5 hymns, and you're done. And but yeah, to hear that there's like almost improvisation there in the Catholic side, that's really interesting. Not necessarily easy to follow, but interesting for sure. Yeah.
I mean, I think it looks like they're trying to expand a little bit into some newer songs. But I'm almost wonder, and it may just be my church, but I mean, it looks like maybe they just need some more musicians. Like, maybe they're not getting anybody to volunteer to do it, so it's pretty much this lady playing piano, and she can sing and she can play, obviously, and then the choir, and that's it. Because I've never seen a guitar player there, and that drummer's not there every week, so that might be it. I mean, they're always asking for volunteers, and if I had any idea, any clue as to what I was doing or knew any of those songs, I might, but other than playing some ambient slide in the background and trying to figure it. And I got a feeling that would be frowned upon. Like, what is he doing back there?
Actually, that reminds me of a story. I was visiting we were trying to find the church, and I was visiting one of them. And I think that you know this guy because I think he's playing all over the state now. But it was about 10 years ago, and he's and I went to this church in Cadillac, and for special music, this guy had an open tune slide guitar. And he was playing a song he wrote. It was blues format, straight up Christian blues. And he was really good, really good. But the thing is, it's like greasy slide guitar playing, kind of like what you do, Nick, except for he was singing like Christian lyrics to it. And he's a kid. He's probably about maybe 16, 17 years old. And the pastor gets up afterwards. And he says, well, it's been a long time since we've had a blues played in the church here. And then they move on with this, because he's like, I know some of these people aren't going to want to hear, you know, greasy gut bucket blues with Christian lyrics on top of it. But I mean, the kid was talented. And then I started seeing him all over the place, and I think he's traveling all over now, playing you know, straight slide blues solo. I can't remember. I saw him a couple years later in Lake City, or in Cadillac rather, but boy, I can't remember his name. But boy, he was good. And it was just funny to see. Okay, there's like a certain segment of people that were sitting there like really into it, and then as the older they got, they were like, "Why is he playing this music, this wild music in church?" Because it was like full on. It was like all the little trills and fills and stuff that you can do with a slide.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's interesting how.
Stands up, rips their tie off, and starts swinging it over their head. Go,
not at that church. Not at a Presbyterian church.
You probably got so many letters.
That's too funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many phone calls. Let's not do that anymore.
No, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, God made John Lee Hooker too, man.
Yeah, man, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So
There's a lot of great gospel slide guitar. Half of that old Delta style country blues is all gospel. I mean, you just got somebody that can do it. I'd love to see somebody be able to turn that into something more contemporary today and perform like that. I think that's great.
Yeah. Sure.
There's some editions of Amazing Grace that are amazing on slide guitar. And Dobro.
Well, we were I was at the tent one night, and I would just, it kind of got to where I would just go early and just start hanging out, and if I got invited to kind of jump in, I would. And we kind of got in this jam, and I don't remember exactly what was going on at the moment, but I was playing guitar and kind of spontaneously like started doing some songs like with the other guys. And there was this guy that you'd had. It was not uncommon for people to be there, and they would kind of just go hang out at 10 to 10 for a few minutes and see what was going on. And there was this older like guy, and it's probably his 60s. He's a white-headed guy, so I could tell he, maybe pushed the me for exactly what I was hoping for out of Mississippi's tent. He was like, I'm from Long Island, New York, and I've always been jealous of the music that comes out of Mississippi. And it kind of blew me back, and he started talking about how he was into all these blues artists, and he started naming names. And I'm talking about like these, they go way back to like the 40s and the 50s, some of the household names in Gut Bucket Blues. And then it got in this conversation, and one of the girls that was there like tapping on the drums, I didn't know her. She started talking about how she was from a lot of like that's a huge part of my region, like that musical background. It's definitely something I kind of take for granted.
Well, yeah, you had like Mississippi Fred McDowell, and a lot of people like that. I mean, Son House. Son House is one of the best stories ever for Delta blues, because he was a pastor or a minister or whatever, and he thought he was playing the devil's music. So it was like this conflict in his head. Actually quit playing guitar for years. Those stories are awesome, but a lot of those old blues songs are very gospel. There's a lot of crossover. For sure.
Yeah.
So P-Dubs, that's the P-Dubs part of the show?
That's the P-Dubs part of the show.
Is this
I don't want to dominate.
No. It's I feel like Nick and I have been kind of dominating the whole thing. Usually we've heard a couple Clifton stories by this point in the podcast. We've only heard one or two. Yeah. I want to hear more. What how was the trip back with the kids? Were they pretty worn out, or?
Oh, I don't know. I threw them all.
Okay. So my plan was, I played Sunday night. My plan was to go back to the hotel as soon as I got up, like get on the road, on Monday morning. Woke up and we were kind of still feeling it, and I had given myself a little extra time to get back, so. We decided to go back down there one more time, and we went, and I took the kids back to the Smithsonian, the Natural History Museum. So one of my daughters is like really big into dinosaurs, so we went to the Natural History Museum and got to see that part of it. And then we went back. They had an all day. At that point, they had stopped all the tents and like had just done like a main stage for like half the day, and they closed out like later that afternoon. But we went down there and was part of that, and I'm talking like there was probably, if I could estimate, I've got a picture, there was probably like hundreds of thousands of people, which really surprised me that were there. Um, yeah, when I first got there, I would say is easily like tens of thousands were there. But like over the weekend, like it built up to like they said that at one point there was like they knew the people that had registered at the event that there was like 400,000 people that were there at one point. And
wow, I didn't have any. I had no idea that was that big.
Yeah,
like he posted some videos just outside the tent, but I couldn't imagine. That's huge.
Yeah, it completely escaped the media's attention or anything like that. And I'm kind of glad. Like it was just a grassroots thing, you know. I remember I had parked like a mile and a half away from the thing, and it was crazy. And because parking comes at such a premium downtown, I didn't know that, and I feel like I finally figured out how to get around downtown, and then I leave, you know. But I was almost back to my parking garage, and I heard the thunder of the low end thump coming from the main stage, and I heard the vocals coming out on top, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, this can be heard. This music is being heard all over the entire city. And I think like most people are just like, oh, it's just a concert going on or whatever, but like it was meaningful to me to hear it.
What was it, Striper?
And hear it. No, it was I don't even know the names of some of these groups. Like it was a lot of like just people that apparently the organization knew, but like these weren't like big names by any stretch of the imagination. Like they were just worship groups that were playing. You know, I heard Brett Alexander's band play, you know, they don't have a label. They play at his local church. I was talking to him afterwards in Humboldt, California. They were amazing. Like the quality of music that was going on at this thing, it blew my mind. I was like, here are all these people who are literally like just from local places coming together and don't have record deals. A lot of these people don't do this for a living. Like this is just something that they're doing in their church, and to come here with it, and it was like this is good or better than a lot of the music that you hear.
So was this
that's being released?
Was this main stage running pretty much all day? Like
yeah, it would run on and off. It would run on and off, and that's like they had a big, huge sound system for that. That, like I said, could be heard across the city. It was carrying like thunder. I know the low end was thumping, and then they had with regional tents like West Coast, East Coast, North, South. I spent most of my time there when I went to a regional tent at the West Coast one because I knew a couple guys playing there, and they had like a smaller sound system. And you could hear them across the lawn while they were going on. And then each of our tents were like acoustic only. Like they might have like an amp for like a keyboard, you know, since they didn't roll out pianos. But yeah, it was like just acoustic guitars as loud as they go. You know, an electric piano plugged into an amplifier. No microphones. A lot of people on djembes or cajones, hand drums, things like that. And it was refreshing to play music that way. Like most of the time, like when I'm playing in the context of a church, like I'm worrying about the sound being good and, you know, all of us hearing each other, and like playing in that context, like you could hear everything. It was just very organic, and it got to be the point where like I played every song I knew, and then like you just start playing chord progressions and seeing where it goes, kind of spontaneously, you know.
That really does. It sounds a lot like Wheatland Music Festival here in Michigan, where that's a bluegrass festival in Remus. That's really it's pretty famous. It's been going on for a long time, and the walk-up jam kind of thing, and then there's the main stage, and yeah, there's little bluegrass circles everywhere. I mean, all different parts, and you can join anything you want. But that's a really liberating way to play. I've only been once, and I'd really like to. I was pretty amazed, and I wasn't very good at the time. I'd really like to go back.
Yeah.
And they even had clinics too. They had like blues guitar clinics and jazz clinics and mandolin clinics and dobro clinics, and it was really, really neat. But I hear you, man. That sounds like a great time. I mean, that's just, I don't know who anybody get into that.
Yeah, they kind of build this as like the worship Woodstock,
That is the best name ever. They should trademark it.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. That's funny.
But
that's cool.
I tell you what, it put me in contact and in network with a bunch of people that I didn't really know that were across my state. That I could hope to get connected with and work with more. Like it was amazing. Like you find out there's so many people doing the same thing you're doing, just somewhere else. Like an hour down the road, or it was really cool.
Yeah,
go ahead, Josh.
As musicians, it feels like we get really isolated sometimes, and I know that's a lot with the Facebook groups here. I think that for me, that's really what encourages me, and I can imagine we're going to a festival like that and actually meeting people in your area and feeling like, oh yeah, okay, I'm not the only person on earth that's playing this stuff. I'm not the only person on earth that's interested in playing music, because I mean, I know that a lot of times you feel like it's kind of a singular thing. You practice at home, you play by yourself, and then maybe you go to an open mic, or maybe you play at church, or maybe you play a gig, but then you're back out and isolated again. And it's pretty rare to have other musicians to talk to, and other musicians with even the same purpose that you have. That must have been extremely encouraging for you, and
it was, and I'm trying to just process it and think, well, what can I go back home and do? Like, I would like to definitely, pull these types of things on a local level.
Oh, yeah.
Get back with these people that I did meet and try to set up a local event. I'd also like to, they've got, go ahead.
No, I think I picked up some latency there. I didn't know if you were you were done or not. But I was gonna say you should do like 1 day guitar show like but it'd be like 1 day P-Dubs
1 day
show.
jam.
Yeah,
where you guys all meet up and rock out. That'd be sweet.
Yes.
Yeah.
And well, I have a friend, Zach Haggerty, who I finally got to meet like in real life and spend some time with him, and he does that where he's from in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. They do once a month. They call it a 24/7 burn, and they they set up and play worship music, and they play it for 24 hours once a month. And the location changes there locally, to different places. But he's real. I'm kind of inspired to go do that now, and not only that, but like. This was a big event that had like each state represented, but there was another location that I knew I had heard about in the past, but I got to see it, for myself. It was over there by the Washington Monument. And every so often, every like 12 or 15 months, the National Park Service like makes a move to another location on the mall. But it's called David's Tent, and what they do is like they have a tent that's going 24/7, 365 days a year, where people are coming in all across the country. They volunteer their time to play like, I don't know if it's like 2-hour sets like I was doing, and they go down there as long as they want to and want to volunteer for, and they play. And it's just there. It's like just making a statement, like, we're providing this here on our nation's capital. It was really cool. I want to definitely link up with that and see what it takes to get in on that.
Cool.
Did you convert any WorleyBirds while you were there?
That's a good question.
No.
You were not wearing your as the marketing professional on this podcast right now. You were not wearing your WorleyBird shirt from the Threadless store. I feel like this was a wasted opportunity.
Oh, come on.
Shameless self-promotion.
Yeah.
No, but I did wear my Cower Titan shirt.
Uh-huh.
To spread the news about Cower.
He doesn't need any more promotion.
Oh, okay.
And then my last day on Monday, I wore my Gear Slim t-shirt. So I was helping all the way home through North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina. I was spreading the gospel of the slum.
Sheesh. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Slumming at a P-Dubs worship.
I didn't get any conversation.
No.
Nobody was trying to read your shirt when they didn't think you were looking like me. Oh.
Yeah. It was funny though. We stopped at Taco Bell in Atlanta, and my oldest daughter, she's 6. She's just starting to read, and she's reading my shirt. She says, "They all guitar," and she can't say nonsense, all things nonsense, guitar, and like she's stumbling all over it, and then she says, "The Gear Slim." And I was like, I thought it was funny. I was like, here I am wearing the shirt all the time. I don't think my daughter's ever questioned it or wondered what this is, or anything like that. And she was like, "What is the Gear Slim, Dad?"
Oh,
like, well, it's kind of hard to explain.
Well, it's actually really easy to explain because if the shirt just said nonsense, we'd be right there.
Yeah.
The Gear Slim nonsense. And people would understand the community better also.
Yeah, there's new people coming in. Think it's about guitars. They think it's about music and stuff.
It's the Gear Talk. It's the Gear Talk migration.
Yeah.
The great Gear Talk migration of 2017 is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No WorleyBirds. That's a shame.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah, but there are like plenty of people now that like I want to have on the show that I met up there now.
That's cool.
Kind of hear their stories. So I
totally.
definitely, yeah.
Well, and I would have, I thought we'd get a couple interviews there, but then I was thinking, man, he's probably having so much fun and there's probably so much to do. He's probably borderline burnout as it is, let alone pull people off to the side and try to record a podcast. Plus, it was probably really noisy.
Oh my goodness, yes. I tried as much as I could to like catch video clips on my phone, and I had my GoPro going. It was funny, like I'd leave my GoPro going so long that like I'd pick it up and it'd be like burning hot. And then like I had uploaded some stuff, but then like the second day, like apparently like something in my SD card like didn't do, and I didn't capture any of it.
Oh.
But I got more content than I know what to do with, like as far as video content that I don't even know where to start,
You see a montage. Make a montage video.
Yeah,
I would love to do that. Like so far I've put like 2 clips on YouTube of me playing with some guys. But that's not even the tip of the iceberg.
The Clifton Intensity Groove video that you put out, where you looked
probably so. Yeah,
you were angry but not.
Just really intense. It was like a Luigi Death Stare type of thing. It was like
it was
so intense, so intense. It's like, oh my goodness.
I think Clifton wants to fight someone, but I don't know who he wants to fight.
You're not the first person to say that.
Maybe it's the sound.
I've heard that my whole life. Is that I look angry when I play, and it's not like I'm having a good time. But I've heard that from several people that I just look like I'm so angry.
I just can't get enough mids. I need more mids.
No, I'll tell you, for some reason or other, I look disappointed when I play. Like, oh man, this is really what I'm playing. I look disappointed when I play.
Yeah.
Or it was like I wanted to take a screenshot of it and meme it because it looked really funny at one part. Yeah. Because that dude was going all a cappella and singing, and like, and you were like so angrily strumming it.
I'm sure it's just intensity, though. Yeah, I mean, it's just.
Man, I am grooving and you are ruining it.
Nah, I'm not sure it's.
Yeah, so, I was really concerned like how this all would translate to like all my friends. Like obviously like the people in the Peter world get it, but like maybe some don't. And like I've been very fortunate. Like so far, like there's been like no negativity about it.
Yeah, it's always a thing. You've really put yourself out there, Clifton, and that's always a thing that I wonder about. If you get any of that negativity, I mean, it doesn't seem like you have been.
No, not usually. It's always in the back of my mind, like if you kind of putting yourself out there, kind of letting people see like a part of your life that maybe you kind of keep close to your coat a little more, and then to like kind of go public with it. Like, yeah, you always think about, well, how will people receive to it? I mean, obviously, not all of my friends are into that movement or Christians or are the same faith as I am, and so it's always in the back of my mind, like, how's that translate to somebody outside of that world? But it's always been fairly positive for the most part.
Yeah, you don't seem pushy either, though. I mean, definitely not. I mean, it just seems like this is a part of your life, and you're you're a genuine guy. So I mean, what we see is what we get. So that's part of your life.
I'm not trying to put on any kind of airs like I'm something I'm not. Hopefully,
Like if you held up a sign or something that was like "Convert today," blah blah blah, blah sign up here, go to this website.
Unless it's for listening to the Clifton Worley show. I mean, I suppose that'd be good. I mean, do some marketing there.
Yeah. Well, there was like at this event, like there was a few, and I knew like the weirdos were going to come out. I mean, like at any kind of big event, there was some weirdos, and but it seemed like they weren't the norm, and like it seemed to be like when people did approach a tent acting weird, like people kind of, oh, this is not really what we're about, like. This is kind of what we're here for, and we're not here for any kind of negativity or anybody being super pushy. Like, we're just here to do this, So it was really good.
Did you get a lot of like? I wonder if there are people that just go because it's a music festival. Like may not be. May just
well, this was the first one.
Oh, I thought it was a normal thing that was all the time.
No, like, this was the first one. I bought into it. How I found out about it, I had my friend Zach Haggerty like messaged me and he was like, "Look, they're going out like doing a campaign like into each state to try to get people to come." And he was like, "Here's the info for your state," and he was like, "It's literally like right where you are." And they had like the state meeting in my town, and so there was like 4 of us that came from my area. 4 worship leaders, and then like countless other people, and then like an hour up the road there was a whole slew of people, and then there was people from other parts of the state that I'm not familiar with that came. But they kind of did it like that. Like they came to each state and like held a meeting like kind of this, hey, we're gonna go do this in October, and I had about 6 weeks to get it all together. And I went, I was like, yeah, I want to be a part of this. Like this sounds like something that's never been done before. And so there were people who were there at the mall who didn't know what was going on, that, would walk by and stop and check out tents. But then there was a lot of people who were there like intentionally as well.
Cool. Yeah, man, that's neat that they pulled that together. I bet you that's probably only going to get bigger and bigger, huh?
Yeah, well, they're talking about, I don't know if they're going to do this next year or not. They haven't announced it, but they did announce on the last day that they were going to do this like in each state next year.
That's cool.
So like they're going to do it like at each state capital. We're going to all, like, I don't know what that means. Like in Mississippi, we may go to Jackson and go out on the state capitol lawn and do this like for 3 days.
Well, I don't know where we do that, and they do that in Lansing. Although I bet you Elderly Instruments would have a heck of a weekend if they did.
Yeah, I bet they would. Yeah, for sure.
But that would be cool. I'd want to matriculate over there just to see what that was about.
Yeah, well, sure. If I find out any details about Michigan, I will let you guys know for sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So it was cool. I got to sub in at the Alaska tent for a little bit because they were really struggling to get people to come from Alaska.
No doubt.
Rightfully so. And
to understand anyone.
I got to go play at the Alaska tent. Friend has a connection there, and they only had like 2 people come from Alaska, so they were having trouble going 72 hours. And so there was a few states like that in Hawaii where they kind of were struggling, and people like would go volunteer their time to go play over there to help them kind of fill up the slots. So it was a cool experience.
Talk about being lagged, man. That'd have been rough.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what else you guys want to talk about?
You know what? I think the different views on gear, because I think we all have massively different views on gear. I think we all, because I know that Clifton's got all the tube amps and everything like that, and the nice stuff, and Nick has
crap.
And I go for the cheapest stuff that's playable. Anything that's cheap and playable, that's what I get.
Come to think of it, we do have how much time you got? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, that'd be a part 2, I think, maybe.
in 10 minutes, or less.
In 10 minutes or less, let's talk about our grand philosophy of gear. The unified philosophy of gear, for sure. Yeah.
All right.
But I mean, we haven't talked.
Let's start with Nick. I know. Let's start with Nick. I guess kind of give us your idea on gear.
I spend hours on Reverb and eBay sending Josh old harmonies, parlors, and stuff that has bridges coming off, and thinking, I think I can fix this. This would be sweet.
And it's like $80 or $90. It's like, why do you want to fix it? Just go ahead.
Just get a recording king. It's better. Yeah, but that wasn't made in 1960.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have a warped neck, which is part of the fun.
Well,
but no. Anyway, I think I've had nice gear. I mean, I had a lot of gear when I was younger that I foolishly sold. Whenever I kind of jump hobby to hobby, I end up selling the old hobby to get to the new stuff. Yeah. So I lost some stuff. That some of it was valuable or would have been valuable today. I know I had a Hammer double cutaway at one point, and I had a Sovtech midget MIG head and cab, and I mean, those aren't really high dollar items, but they would have been, it's like $1,600 worth of gear, today if I'd have kept it. I've had a lot of Strats, some deluxe Strats. I had American Standard, an 81 American Standard that I should have kept. And I've had a slew of tellies and acoustics. I've had so many guitars, it's not even funny. But kind of where I'm at right now is, and I've mentioned this in Clifton's show before, is I've come to the realization that I pretty much sound like me no matter what. So, in what I like to play, I like to fight a little bit. I have a really hard attack, and obviously I play slide. I finger pick a lot. I really like to dig in. So what I'm kind of realizing is I sound a whole lot better on acoustics than I do anything else. I love to plug acoustics in. I love the feel. I'd rather do that than an electric. And I really like things that are kind of junky and worn and budget. And I like to mod them and DIY them because I'm going to do that to any guitar I buy. That's just the way I am. So I've really kind of got into my number one guitar is my Beard Gold Tone Resonator. And I'm surprised that one's still playing because I've really tried to mess that up too many times, but it sounds great. And that's my only really good guitar. Every other guitar I have is pretty much budget. And I'm kind of amassing a really weird collection of like Taisco and harmonies and vintage Japanese stuff that I want to fix up. That's kind of like my thing now. Like I really dig that whole, like, at first, I just felt like I had a hodgepodge of crap, and then I started looking at it and actually working on these guitars. Like I have a Framus nylon string from the '60s, and I got this Kingston that my father-in-law, this 12 string that he gave me that had a broke neck that was repaired, but I converted it to a 6 because it couldn't handle the tension anymore, and that's like my favorite guitar right now. So there are things that I just realized that there's a cool factor about this stuff that I really enjoy. And that's kind of my outlook on it now. I like kind of beat up and junky. I think it's got I know everybody, I think people overuse the word mojo, but that's kind of what it is. It's got a unique sound to it, and there's something fun about it. But, other than that, I kind of had to buy a dad amp because I needed something practical, and the Katana's been great for me. So I pretty much play through my Katana now, which is weird because I've always played through tube amps, and I love that Katana. So, that's kind of where I'm at with that. And pedals, I'm actually a little more high end on the pedals as of late. I've got a Wampler Ego compressor, and I've got the 50/50. I've got a half horse, and I've got some other things. So I'm actually spending a little bit more money on my pedals now. And they sound really, really good. And that's the only time I really get into the boutique thing is with the pedals, and I don't know why. But yeah, that's kind of my whole deal. I guess I like guitars I can fight, that kind of speak to me, that have a story. I'm really into the story. I love the story when it comes to instruments.
Yeah.
So we can move on to Cheapskate now. He can talk about his gear.
I don't believe in Mojo. I don't believe it exists. I've never, unless you show me Mojo with my eyes, unless I hear it with my ears, I will not believe that Mojo exists. It's, I mean, I understand you have faith in Mojo, but I don't believe in Mojo. I'm sorry.
I never said I had faith in Mojo.
You believe in Mojo, though. You believe.
I do.
Yeah. No, I'm just, but no, I like it. I don't know. I mean, until recently, I thought I really liked having a guitar with a lot of character in it. But really, what I want is something flat and neutral that I can put on. I can put that plays nice and doesn't really. And so that's why, I mean, I bought the Talman and I bought the Katana. It's like, okay, well, I can make a really neutral. This is really neutral, and I can make it sound like whatever I want. And actually, the PRS that I bought to flip is what taught me that. It's like, this is a flat guitar. This guitar sounds really good, but it doesn't have enough character that it's hiding what I'm doing, And so I feel like, I mean, I like having a little drive, a little distortion, but I don't want the distortion to have too much character either. What I'd rather have is, if I hit that guitar a little harder, have it have a different sound, rather than okay, if I play like I love the way a Vox AC30 or AC15 sounds, but it always sounds like a Vox, I like the way that a Fender Tele sounds, but it always sounds like a Tele, I like the way that so it's like having this stuff, the Talman and the inexpensive PRS and the Katana. It's like everything is neutral, and if I want to shift it in one direction or the other, I don't need to go get another guitar. And I guess that's my whole thing. And then as far as pedals, I buy the cheapest pedals I possibly can that work, I mean, the most expensive pedal on the board here is probably the Sub and Up right now, which is $100, everything else is, $10, $20, $30, $40. And it's like, okay, if it's quiet and it makes a sound, I don't mind having it on there. But my big thing is that it doesn't color too much. I'd rather just have it be a neutral drive or a neutral, if I could get pedals that just said what they did on them and nothing else and had no story whatsoever, then I would love it. If it said drive, if it said octave, if it said generic brand reverb, almost as good as the real thing, then I would prefer that to having any kind of story whatsoever. For me, it's like I don't know. I like that idea that it's not somebody else's something put into me. But the thing is, then I hear Nick play on a recording. It's like, okay, he almost makes me believe in Mojo. Like, because you get that grease, you almost make me believe in Mojo. You almost do, Nick. And then I hear Clifton is like, what do I have to eat to sound like Clifton? Because there's, it's like, do I just have to put my toes into Mississippi clay or something, Mississippi dirt, and like roll around in it or something, then all of a sudden have that country sound?
You have to drink your coffee black and extremely bold.
Ah, okay.
That's the magic.
Yeah, because
I don't know. I'm just.
So what about you, Cliffy? What about you, Clifton?
Well, I started out playing bass, okay, and it was a short scale bass, and so a lot of the way I play, I'm thinking about bass lines when I'm playing, okay, So that kind of shaped the way I play. And then I went on to play kind of mainly acoustic, and it was one of those kind of acoustics where the strings were high up off the neck and had to fight it a lot. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of like Nick in that regard, where
perfect.
I have to. I've dug in. I've learned how to really kind of fight the instrument a little bit. I spent years kind of with the same guitars. I like. By the end of high school, I had a Taka Mini acoustic that was just kind of a mid-level one. That wasn't like a super great one. And played that for years. And then my first electric was a made in Mexico Fender Strat. And that kind of was my orientation of how I played electric. Was very... this doesn't make sense, but like certain guitars, I believe, like if you start out on one, it kind of shapes the way you play a little bit.
Totally.
And so I started out on a Strat, so like everything felt good. If it was a Strat, it felt good. And about, I don't know if it's 5 or 6 years ago. Let's see, I got my first Tele when my second daughter was born, and she's 4. And I got a Tele and really leaned into that. And it really changed a little bit of the way I play. Because the way the neck on that felt was different, and the way it, not having a tremolo, like, it just had a different feel. And it took me a while, like when I did a bend, for that, like, to play in tune, right? Okay, switching from the Strat to the Tele. And I just kind of embraced that whole Telecaster vibe. And so I've kind of moved on from the Strats to the point where I've got another Strat that I just barely ever play. It kind of stays in my closet. And I kind of went on a binge where I was playing a little bit of, like, I'd have a friend come by and jam, and he had a Les Paul, and there's another Les Paul here at the church, and I was playing a lot of Les Paul, and I really loved that. But the way my Tele is, like, with the wide range humbucker in the neck, like, I can pull off a lot, and the way the scale length is on that Tele, it's not too far apart from being, if this makes any sense, Les Paulish. So that's kind of where I lean these days, like Les Paul, Tele kind of guitar.
Also, like good guitars.
And I try, yeah, good guitars.
Like that 125 you have hanging on the wall that I'm salivating over right now.
Oh, right here, yes. Actually, yeah. So I've got my Tele and my it's 125 behind me, and our podcast listeners aren't going to know what that means because I'm pointing at it and I'm like, they're gonna see this, but no, they're
all
not.
asleep by now anyway. They're all asleep by now.
And if I really feel like slumming it up,
no, actually no.
It's
I reach for my Mexico Martin. Yeah. So here's the question, Clifton: do you believe in mojo?
Yeah. Do I?
Be careful what you say.
It's hard.
He's a lot bigger than me. Nick's a lot bigger than me. Go ahead.
It's hard to answer that. I believe that there's a little bit of an element in music that's magical. It's the unknown. You don't know where it's going to go, and you find people doing things that you wouldn't imagine with certain instruments. They can make it sound a way that you can't.
Mm-hmm. I dig that.
I don't get superstitious. Like, okay, when it came to amplifiers, I learned my lesson. Like, I had bought and sold so many of them that I learned that okay, well, if it's this type of circuit, you're going to get this sound. This if it's AC30, it's going to sound like this. If it's a Fender Blackface, it's going to sound like this. And so you find, well, this is like a palette of the kind of tones I want to go for, so I get this type of amp. Guitars are a little bit that way, depending on I know this. I'm trying to make this sound tangible, and it's not. But I believe that depending on the wattage you have and how much output your guitar is making, that kind of steers your tone. So, like, if you have a real hot guitar, it's gonna hit that amp harder, but your amp's gonna respond differently. Versus, if I'm playing like a Stratocaster, it's not gonna drive my guitar as hard. I mean, my amp is hard, so I might have to crank that amp up and play louder.
That's sag.
Or if I got the hump, yeah. If I've got
that's Clifton, tell us what sag is.
Is it, man? We're gonna be here till midnight.
Well, my best.
Don't tell us about sag. I don't care.
My best example is that when I owned a Super Reverb, it was tube rectifier driven, and when you dug in, you could hear that where it clipped a little bit, compressed. And then I went to like some of the amps like Twin Reverb and the Basemans, silver-faced Basemans, where they had diodes replacing that tube. So it was a solid-state rectification, and it was a little bit more articulate and straightforward, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
no, totally does. You hear people like
it's more straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah, shred guys talk about wanting those plexis all the time because they had the solid state rectifiers on the Marshalls and that they're more dynamic and cleaner when they play.
Yeah.
I don't know who said that. It was probably Ingve.
Yeah.
No, I totally get it.
There's a noticeable difference. Yeah. Or like I used to have a little Champ copy that was tube rectifier, and it really sagged out. I mean, you could go like 1 to 3 and you get a little bit more volume between those, but then like you got past 3 on up to 10, and like it was just the amount of how hard you were pushing that, and it was sagging and like it was clipping out.
Yeah.
Well, here's the least technical way I can describe mojo to me. I feel like every guitar has a story in it. It has a voice. It has something it wants to say. And I feel like the older stuff that's been played, that's been like acoustics that have been opened, that have been played for a long time and are opened up and have the mileage and everything like that. They have been played a certain way and have formed to be in that certain way. And they have their own voice, and they have something to say. I have something to say because I've been playing a certain way for so long, and I've got a style, I have a technique, and where the mojo comes in is the compromise between me and my instrument. I'm helping it speak, It is helping me speak. And together we are telling a story. In different instruments you are going to have, you'll still sound like you, but a little bit different because you're compromising with that other instrument. That's what mojo is to me. It's not some mystical, magical thing. It's just basically two worlds combining and something beautiful coming out of it. Or potentially terrible.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is.
I guess I can see that. I mean, because a different guitar does make you play differently. I mean, if it comes down to that, that's what it is, really. I mean, a different guitar, and an older guitar, if it's been played a lot, has, especially acoustic guitars. Electric guitars, not so much maybe, but acoustic guitars definitely open up, and they definitely change over time for sure. They definitely do, especially when they've been played a lot. Now, a pristine, I guess that might be where your mojo comes from, because a pristine guitar has been sitting in the closet for 40 years. It's not going to sound a whole lot better than a brand new one for sure. I mean, it might be made out of better wood, but maybe not, It definitely won't be set up as well as a brand new guitar. I can see that.
Yeah, but you got to run it through an amp and you got to wake it up. That's what you got to do. Yeah. You got to wake it up.
Yeah.
You ever hear that? Read any of the Deke Dickerson books or anything about the closet classics? Nope. And I don't know if he said that, but like when a guitar is dormant for a long period of time or something, like I've read that it needs to be woken up. It needs to be played, and then it like I don't know if this is true at all. It sounds jank.
Yeah. Well, you're saying it out loud now. That's the thing.
But I could see how an acoustic though, like if it was sitting, like if you had this Martin D28 that hasn't been played in 40 years.
Oh yeah.
Or something like that, and it's been under your bed, and you take it out, you put a new pair of string, you put some strings on it, and you play that thing. I gotta believe that something with the wood, it's being used again. It's opening back up again.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
it's you're bringing it back to life, kind of thing.
Yeah, for
Where
sure.
if you played that guitar for 40 years, I'm sure it'd be nice and open and sound great and everything like that. This sounds like Joe Bonamassa.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I think that's part of the allure to music for me in guitar is kind of like that whole deal.
Yeah, you're definitely about the gear, that's for sure. I mean, it is part of it. I mean, there's nothing cooler than picking up a guitar and playing it, really, compared to a lot of other things where the gear is pretty minimal, Well, I'd imagine golfers kind of talk the same way about their clubs sometimes, or woodworkers about their chisels or something like that. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, they're beautiful.
Maybe I'm just weird. I mean, I've got
no.
I name my softball bats too.
Wait a minute. You're naming inanimate objects.
Oh, I do that all the time. My bow's got a name.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Alrighty. No, that's cool. I mean, that's your thing.
No, I've had really good conversations with people about naming like tools.
Okay.
Like and like getting attached to things. Like once you give something a name, you get attached to it, kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I can
and
see
you
that.
shouldn't get attached to it, And it's like having a mouse running around in your garage that you probably need to get rid of, and then all of a sudden your daughter names it.
Yeah.
And now you can't get rid of Fluffy.
You see, when you started that little bit, I thought you were gonna say, I had some really good conversations with my guitar, because you talk about naming it, personifying it, and he said,
no, I swear at that.
No, okay. You're gonna talk to your guitar about it.
I can't get rid of anything anymore. I'm terrible like that.
Yeah.
Especially like I think that's why I'm stuck with a bunch of guitars. I don't think any of them have resale value, and that's why I'm stuck with them now. Like I can't get rid of them. I'm not going to get what I put into them, so it's not getting rid of them. But
Yep.
What about you, Clifton? Clifton left. Clifton's done.
Yeah, he can't take us anymore. Oh boy. Okay.
This is the part of the show that we have to come up with a fun podcast name. That Clifton's that we need a morning drive time name.
Yeah. I don't know. I couldn't tell. I can't think of anything. My goodness, look, he is completely gone.
Seriously, he left.
He left. Yeah, that's not a joke.
We don't know where he went, and he didn't even throw up any hand signals.
No, he's like, I'm done. I can't take these guys anymore. Yeah, for sure.
He's making a sandwich.
Something important he has to deal with or something.
He's getting some hot chicken. That's what he's doing.
It's been an hour and a half. An hour and a half.
To be fair, the first 20 minutes we didn't know what we were doing. So
yep. He's gonna have some big time editing to do, or maybe he won't.
Yeah. I doubt it. I don't think he edits anything.
No. Well,